Good day, friends. I'm Dave. Welcome back to Planet XSF, Episode 11. Terms and conditions may apply. Today, we look at the movies from the 1950s, 60s, and 70s that center around giant insects and arachnids. Insects are a natural subject of horror movies as humans generally harbor fear, anxiety, some degree of revulsion about tiny, multi-legged creatures. There are exceptions. Looking at you, Kate. Combine this with anxiety related to the atomic bomb in the 1950s, and you have a recipe for science fiction terror. Two great things that go great together. As with any film genre, some efforts are better than others. But if you're willing to suspend disbelief, most of them can at least be entertaining. Today's subject are limited from the 50s to the 70s mainly due to personal preference. There are many examples of giant insects after that, but I felt that the most memorable and creative examples were from earlier in the century. My channel, my rules. Well, what are we waiting for? Let's get started. Them, 1954. Starring James Whitmore, Edmund Gwenn, best known as, Joan Weldon, and James Arness, from The Thing from Another World, and in this movie, the guy from the FBI, and eventually Marshal Matt Dillon from Gunsmoke for about a century. There's a very brief cameo by Leonard Nimoy as a sergeant in the communications room. Giant ants, mutated by radioactivity, threaten the New Mexico desert. The film follows scientists and law enforcement as they uncover the cause and battle the monstrous insects. The climactic battle in the storm drains of Los Angeles is a highlight. The title is the only element of the film in color, the only part that survived from the original 3D color production, aside from a flamethrower aimed directly at the camera. In 1964, Remco produced a series of plastic giant insect-type monsters, one of which was based on the giant ants of Them, though it was inexplicably sold as the Spooky Spider, despite only having 6 legs. Tarantula, 1955, starring John Agar, Mara Corday, and Leo G. Carroll, eventually Mr. Waverly from The Man from U.N.C.L.E. A scientist's experiment with a growth formula results in a colossal spider. The creature escapes and terrorizes the countryside, prompting a desperate search to stop it. Aside from shots of the giant tarantula on fire, actual live spiders were filmed for the special effects shots of the giant arachnid, which led to more realistic-looking effects. This was also done, as director Jack Arnold said at the time, because, quote, people are very afraid of spiders, unquote. I mean, yeah, wouldn't you be? The thing's bigger than the house. It includes an uncredited Clint Eastwood as the jet squadron leader. Mara Corday, it should be pointed out, was at one time a Playboy playmate, and probably the best visual effect in the film. The Deadly Mantis, 1957. Craig Stevens, best remembered as super cool Private Eye Peter Gunn, William Hopper, Alex Talton, and Pat Conway appear in this film, directed by Oscar-winning former art director Nathan Juran, who also continued the giant creature theme with a more human twist in Attack of the 50-Foot Woman in 1958. A prehistoric mantis is freed from the Arctic ice by a volcano explosion in the South Seas, this will be a bit of a theme, and proceeds to wreak havoc, also a theme, as it would. Military and scientific teams work together to track and defeat the giant insect. The mantis was a 200-foot-long, hydraulically powered papier-mâché affair with smaller models used for flying shots and a real praying mantis for scenes in which the mantis crawls on the Washington Monument. It was at the time considered a, quote, lame ripoff of the sci-fi classic Them, unquote. No need to bite somebody's head off. The Black Scorpion, 1957. Starring Richard Denning, our favorite playmate, Mara Corday, Carlos Rivas, and Mario Navarro, with stop-motion effects by the legendary Willis O'Brien, the animator of the original King Kong. Volcanic activity, once again, unleashes enormous scorpions in Mexico. The story centers on the struggle of brave white Anglo-Saxon saviors from America to contain and destroy these deadly creatures before they devastate civilization. Besides the stop-motion critters, a large-scale scorpion head was used for reaction shots. Model trains used in the film were provided by Lionel. Lionel Trains, making Dad a boy again. Okay. Beginning of the End, 1957. Starring Peter Graves, coincidentally younger brother of Them star James Arness and future Mission Impossible star himself, Peggy Castle, and Morris Ancrum, professional authority figure. Directed by low-budget legend Bert I. Gordon. Giant grasshoppers, created by agricultural experiments with radiation gone wrong, and who could have seen that coming, invade Illinois. The protagonists must find a way to halt their destructive rampage. Bert I. Gordon produced the special effects for this film himself, working out of his garage. Gordon purchased 200 non-hopping, non-flying live grasshoppers from Texas, put them in a box, and by the time he was back in Los Angeles, they turned cannibalistic, and only 12 were left. Gordon encouraged the remaining dozen insects to crawl across still photographs of landmarks such as Chicago's Wrigley Building using blasts of air. Monster from Green Hell, 1957. Starring Jim Davis, later the patriarch of the Ewing family in Dallas, and Barbara Turner. Mutated wasps, the result of scientific experiments, become monstrous threats. The film follows efforts to confront and eliminate these deadly insects. Probably would have been a little dull if they hadn't. Americans to the rescue, after creating the problem in the first place. Monster from Green Hell is very nearly a documentary these days. A recent review from AllMovie describes the film as a, quote, horrible, ludicrous, giant mutated insect movie from 1958 that is strictly bottom of the barrel, unquote. Earth vs. the Spider, 1958. A massive spider terrorizing a town. Directed by our old pal Bert I. Gordon, and starring no one in particular. A massive spider terrorizes a small town after being disturbed in its lair. Local authorities and teenagers join forces to defeat the creature. When the sci-fi classic The Fly was released earlier in 1958, the advertising material for this film was changed by distributors, American International Pictures, AIP, to The Spider in order to piggyback on its popularity, although none of the actual film prints was altered. Mothra, 1961. A classic kaiju film with legendary Toho Studios, directed by one of my personal favorite directors, Ishiro Honda, with special effects by the legendary master, Eiji Tsuburaya. A giant lepidopteran, or moth-like, creature emerges, often depicted as a protector or a destroyer. The film explores the creature's origins and its impact on humanity. One of the more memorable aspects of the movie, which occurs in all films in which Mothra appears, is the twin fairies, or shobijin, of Infant Island who speak to Mothra through song. They are played here by The Peanuts, a vocal duo consisting of identical twins Emi and Yumi Ito. Infant Island was the site of atomic tests conducted by the nation of Rosilica, which was a stand-in for Russia and America. Interestingly, Mothra is the only kaiju from Toho Studios' vast output that is canonically female. She would return many times in subsequent years and has become the second most popular Toho kaiju after Godzilla. I should mention that Toho had other giant insect kaiju in the 1960s, such as Meganulan, a giant dragonfly nymph that appeared in 1956's Rodan, Kamakuras, which were giant praying mantises, and Kumonga, a giant spider referred to as Spiga in the English dub version of 1967's Son of Godzilla. These would be considered minor supporting antagonists. I want to mention the insect-like foe in Godzilla vs. Megalon from 1973. Megalon is the most prominent Toho insect-like kaiju, although other than beetle-like wings and a horn similar to that of a rhinoceros beetle, it shows very few insect characteristics, being bipedal. Empire of the Ants, 1977. Starring Joan Collins and Robert Lansing. Directed by our good friend Bert I. Gordon, who was also responsible for special effects. This film is based very, very loosely on the 1905 short story Empire of the Ants by H.G. Wells. The film involves a group of prospective land buyers led by a land developer and pitted against large mutated ants that were the result of radioactive waste. The ants are able to control humans through pheromones. The film is a proud owner of a 5% Rotten Tomatoes score. Despite the presence of Joan Collins, Dynasty of the Ants, this ain't. Thanks to some creative and innovative filmmakers, we have a rich history of giant bug movies to enjoy. Whether good or bad, they're always a good time, and continue to attract fans like ants to a picnic. Thanks for joining me this week. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy these videos. The last one was the most popular yet, and I've received some feedback that folks enjoy the anthology style of exploring themes in science fiction better than the individual reviews, so I'll probably lean into those for a little while. There's plenty of incredibly entertaining themes in science fiction, fantasy, general nerd stuff, and I look forward to exploring them with you. That's not to say I won't go rogue now and again. I'm thinking of, exploring some gaming content and maybe a few actual top 10 lists. Please put any suggestions you may have in the comments below. I do really appreciate hearing from you. My friends, I'm still Dave. Have a great week ahead. Watch out for giant bugs, and remain awesome until further notice.